Hello and welcome to Susegad Stories from Goa. I'm your host, Clyde D'Souza. I'm a 3-time published author, media professional, and a Goan who loves everything about Goa. My latest book is called Susegad, The Goan Art of Contentment. In my podcast, I chat with some famous and some of my favorite Goans, and together we explore Goa beyond its beaches. From Feni to Fado, Casa to Cashews, come discover Goa like you've never done before. If you've stayed in a Goan village, you would have heard a particular sound 2 times a day. It's a soft ponk ponk, and you'll see many Goan aunties or uncles or little children run to their compound gates with a little plastic bag. And there a man on a cycle with a big basket on it will give you your favorite warm bread. The day in Goa for many, many Goans begins with the poder and the pao. And to tell us all about it, we have my guest, Sonia Filinto. Sonia is an award-winning filmmaker, actress and producer. Sonia's film Bread and Belonging has been showcased at various film festivals in America, London, Australia and more. It's a really heartwarming story that deep dives into the tradition of baking bread in Goa. Welcome to the Susegad Stories podcast, Sonia.
Hello, Clyde. Looking forward to the session today.
Super. So can you tell me where in Goa are you from, or where are you talking to us from?
So I was born and raised in Kalangut on the coast in the north of Goa. And yes, that's where I am at the moment.
I think many of our audiences are very well aware of Kalangut because it's, of course, the go-to place for most tourists. But I remember you also describing it as a village, which it, of course, is. So can you tell me something about Kalangut that I don't know? By the way, I'm from Kandulam, which is the neighbor.
You're the neighbor, yes.
Yes, I'm the neighbor.
Yes.
So can you tell me something about Kalangut, which I don't know, which I would not know, or which many others would not know? Like when you were growing up, what was that place that you went to in Kalangut, which now is like whatever?
The beach. I mean, it used to be completely different, of course, It was a village, in quote-unquote village, but it always was a bit way ahead of its time in that sense. It was a very popular beach. It still is, but it had a very different flavor earlier. The most striking thing was you had the rampon cars, the wooden boats, the fishermen with their wooden boats, those old, big, huge boats where they used to go to the sea and come back and, throw the net. So that's something that if you ask, what was there before and the difference from before and now. Of course, there's a huge, long list, but for me, that was, something that really stood out. And in fact, it was the subject of an earlier documentary that I made called Shifting Sands.
Wow. Yeah. So I think now the Rampon car boats have been given away to jet ski boats, at least on many beaches in Goa. Yeah, so today we're talking about bread, and recently, there was this outrage in Goa, and the outrage was not about electricity, nor was it about water, but it was about the increase in the price of pao. And guess what the increase was? It was all the way from rupees 4 to rupees 5, 1 rupee. So that's how much people of Goa love pao, but also are, I guess, unwilling to accept price increases. So what do you think about this whole thing, and why do you think Goans have this love for bread so much?
Yeah, as you said, a princely sum of 1 rupee, increase, and it raised a hue and cry. Well, actually, Clyde, if you see in a lot of places around the world, the price of bread is controlled by the state because that is a staple meal, staple diet. But actually, if you really spend some time and talk to the baker will tell you that, the price of everything under the sun has gone up, including the raw materials, including, everything, the labor, everything that is involved in making the bread. So they are struggling, to make 2 ends meet.
Yeah. Now I was just also thinking that, I don't know, most of our audience who is listening, they might just be familiar with the regular pao, or they might be familiar with other kinds of bread, but not many of them might know that there are about 4 or 5 types of Goan bread, right? And I'll just, rattle off their names quickly so they get a sense of what we're talking about and the fact that we're, going to spend a whole whatever podcast on Pao. So there's basically the undo, which is a crusty kind of bread, right? Then there is the poi, which is like a pita bread. Then there is something called kankon, which is like a bangle shaped bread, right? Which kids love. Then there's a scissor shaped bread called katrizo pao. Then there is, of course, the regular pao, which is pao itself. So now what I want to ask you is, when you were making this film, what led you to make the film? Was it a love for bread? Was it a love for filmmaking? Or was it a love for telling unique Goan stories?
I think it was the last one. It started as that, in the sense that I wanted to tell stories from Goa. I feel that Goa is, shooting location. There's a lot of filming that happens here, but I think Goan stories need to be told, And I've been living out of Goa on and off for many years, and whenever I came home to visit my parents, and I would have bread, that was something that we had on a daily basis. And I noticed that the makers of the bread have changed from what they were, or when I was growing up and over the years. So I was very interested in this whole thing of who's making the bread. Bread is very unique to Goa. It's unique to Goan cuisine, its culture, its identity. We identify ourselves, we are bread eaters. Bread was introduced here, and from here it went to the rest of India and, beyond, and, all of that. But the whole thing is that the ones who make the bread are not the ones who used to make, not the multi-generational bakers. So I was very interested in that, and that's how the story came about. And I went out, met people, met bakers, met all kinds of bakers from all parts of Goa, and that I realized there was a story to be told, and not just of course we all love bread. There's a lot of nostalgia around bread. But I wanted to go beyond the nostalgia, question the nostalgia, and see exactly what's happening on the ground as such.
Yeah, I like how, your film basically has these three different angles, which is, one is the whole multi-generational, a family of bakers who are Goan, and then there is a migrant family, a family from Karnataka who has just started baking bread. And then, of course, the film ends with Poderache Festival, which is basically a bread festival. And I like these three different angles. So can you just share who are these families and where did you shoot the film?
Yeah, so we shot across different parts of Goa. One was, like I said, I was very interested in knowing a lot of multi-generational bakers. They're leaving the trade. They are either shutting the bakery or they're leasing it out because it's really not lucrative anymore, because the struggle is real, actually. So I was very interested to talk to them and see, what does it mean for someone who is doing a traditional occupation in that sense? What does it mean for them in today's fast-paced Goan life? Where and it's aspiration. Everyone aspires to move beyond and to better your means and better yourself. So what does it mean in this milieu to run a bakery and to continue running a bakery, and at the same time, as Goans is shutting shop, as the traditional multi-generational bakers are shutting shop, the demand for bread has not gone down. The demand for bread is still there. So there is a need. And that vacuum is filled by, people from across the border. Across the Goan border, they see it, and they see it as a enterprise, see it as a job, something that they can take up and do. So, and if you see especially along the northern coast of Goa, if you go around the bakeries, there are very, very few bakeries who continue to be multi-generational. The whole the milieu has changed in that sense. So I was curious to know, what does it mean for them? For the bakers who have come from outside, who are setting up shop, and how are they running? What is the life of a migrant baker? He might be baking Goan bread, something that is very unique to Goa, but how does he fit in the larger scheme of things? And so I was very curious about that. And of course, there is this whole community coming together, to celebrate bread. So I followed them too.
Right.
And I was trying to see if the three intersect, because ultimately it's all about bread, right?
Yeah.
But they don't. I mean, everyone is doing their own. They have their own parallel trajectory, and I wish they did intersect, because then we could in Goa be doing
Yeah.
something, taking it forward in that
Yeah.
sense, taking
It's quite,
bread
yeah.
making traditional
Hmm.
occupations forward. But yeah.
Yeah, it's quite funny, but yeah, I mean, migrants, international migrants, the Portuguese about more than 4 centuries ago brought the bread to Goa, right? And now that same bread is being consumed in large quantities by Goans on a daily basis, but now locals are not baking it so much as maybe migrants are, right? It's quite
Yeah,
it's come
yeah,
full
yeah,
circle.
yeah. It's
There's this
come
phrase,
full circle.
yeah, there's a very famous Goan phrase, right, which is apt right now, and the phrase is "Te poder gele anite unde kabarzale," which basically means those bakers, those old bakers have gone, and along with them that bread, which basically is this lamenting of not just the loss of bread, but the loss of old Goa. So there's a larger theme running over here, right? Which is basically that there is a change happening within Goa from old traditions to a generation that's dying away, and along with them, their traditions, right? So what do you make about all of this? Do you think it's just something that we just need to accept and move on?
Well, see, I mean, to use a cliche, change is the only thing that's constant. Everyone aspires for a better way of life.
Hmm.
So what is better for one person is different from what is better for another person. So while there's nostalgia and we lament, and we those good old days, but the old occupations are very, very labor intensive. Goans don't
Hmm.
want to do that, because they want to do other things. I mean, and another aspect of it is, like, I was talking to some bakers from
Hmm.
across the border, and one of them made a statement that said, what Dubai is for Goans, Goa is for us, in that sense. So it is,
Wow.
yeah, yeah. So we it's cycle in that sense. But to answer your crux, do we
Hmm.
accept it? Well, is that what we want?
Hmm.
In the sense that, the very essence, we kind of losing some essence. We kind of, I feel, uh, I want to just clarify, when I say
Hmm.
losing the essence, I'm not referring to migrants who are coming in. That is
Hmm.
not what
Hmm.
I mean. I mean that, we are killing the goose that lays the golden egg, almost. In that sense,
Right.
we're not appreciating how unique the place is. It has winds from all over the world. It has influences from all over the world that makes us unique, and we need to kind of appreciate and preserve this land and all
Right.
that it brings, in that sense.
Yeah. So now in the film, I mean, a lot of people again would not know this, but in the olden days, which is maybe 15, 20 years ago, they used toddy as a fermentation ingredient for making bread, right? And in the film,
Right.
you've shown this about, I think he's 70 years old. He's stooped over, but he can still climb that coconut tree in a jiffy. I mean, it's amazing. And yes, while we might all want to have toddy based Pau, those guys don't exist anymore. No one's tapping toddy in that sense, right? I mean, I remember the last time I had toddy was maybe 10, 15 years ago. So, yeah, like you said, I mean, one thing is that we are losing the essence of Goa, that taste of Goa, which we all like. But the other thing is, on the other side of the coin, there's convenience and comforts, which the new generation wants. But on that note, have you ever had a toddy based pao, and do you like it? Do you think it's different?
I have had it, and definitely different. Definitely like it. There is a particular flavor, unique flavor that comes with
Hmm.
that fermentation that you don't get with commercial yeast, in that sense.
Yeah, true. Another thing that is nice in the movie is there's this opening shot where there's this bulb that's dangling into the wood-fired oven, and you just see the glow basically spreading into the kiln, I guess it's called, the oven.
Yeah.
Do you see bakeries who have now moved to a modern way of baking their breads, as in not wood-fired ovens? And do you think that might just kind of help them in producing for them cheaper bread?
See, there were a couple of angles to that. One is that, this bread that is made in Goa with the wood fire oven, it is, we might not use the term, but it is actually artisanal bread. It's made with hands. It is made using wood, and that's what gives it its uniqueness in that sense. Now, another thing is that a lot of many bakers had in fact petitioned the government for some
Hmm.
incentives, some sops really,
Hmm.
to build and maintain this oven, the wood fire oven, to give them first dibs on auctioning of firewood, because firewood is so important, the right kind of firewood for this for the process. So in terms of whether an electric oven, I mean, it's not the same, and the cost would be
Hmm.
quite phenomenal actually.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely right. I mean, I think it's a huge question of branding and packaging and all of that, right? Like for example,
Yes.
there is Hansel Vaz of Kazulo Feni, who has taken a local drink, which is Feni, which is by and large consumed mostly by local Goans, but now he's packaging it like like Smirnoff or like Bacardi, and he's creating these infused Fenis. Or also he's opened up a Feni cellar where you can go like how you go and taste wine, you go and taste Feni. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe someone needs to perhaps do something like that. Give it like this very, I hate to say it, but artisanal hipster packaging. Like presented in that manner. So the other thing that I want to also ask you is that just like Feni now has a GI tag, which is the geographical indication tag, which means that Feni can only be called Feni if it's grown in Goa from cashews plucked in Goa, right?
Mm-hmm.
So do you think maybe the pao and all of these different paos from Katricho pao, Kankon, all of these things are so rooted in Goa? Do you think there's any movement of giving the pao a GI tag? Is that even possible?
See, I mean, Pao is now claimed in the sense, and I don't mean it
Correct.
in a negative way. It is a universal food all over. The vada pav, in
Yeah, yeah.
Bombay is synonymous with Bombay in that
Maharashtra. Yeah,
sense.
yeah.
Yeah. But interestingly, it was taken by the bakers from Goa who migrated to Bombay, and it became the staple diet in around the mills.
Yeah,
When
no, maybe it needs to be reclaimed and put on a pedestal and given its due worth.
yeah,
So
absolutely, yeah, yeah.
there is this museum of bread in Portugal. It's called Museu do Pão, right? Which is like the largest bread museum in the world, and it displays
Mhm.
all sorts of heritage objects which are used in bread making. Does Portugal make the same kind of breads that Goa makes, or is it like just completely different? And are
Oh,
all
it's
the
completely
yeah.
different, completely different. And it's interesting, as you said, you were talking earlier how it was
Hmm.
brought by the Portuguese, and who knows what was the shape, texture, size of the bread at that point, all
Hmm.
those centuries ago, and then it was claimed or reclaimed or claimed by the Goans in that sense. So I'm sure it took different shapes and forms over the years, over the decades, over the centuries.
Yeah. So, okay. So I want to play like this game if you're willing. So it's called Match the Following, where I'll throw out a Goan dish to you and you can tell me maybe which bread goes along with it. So just for our audiences, there is the pao, there is the poi, which is like a pita type of bread. There is kankon, which means bangle and it's shaped like a bangle. There is the katricha pao, which is basically a scissor shaped bread. And there is the undo, which is a round bread, but it's crusty on the outside and soft on the inside. Okay. So, dish number one is, roast omelette, which is curry and omelette. So what goes well with it?
Clyde, I'm sorry, I'm going to play spoil sport again. I
Go for it.
like I like poi, and I think I like poi with almost everything. So I would say I would have the roast omelette with poi and or uno, because I like that too. It's crusty on the outside, so it has
Mhm.
that nice bite to it, and then it's
Right,
soft on
right.
the inside, so you can sponge sponge
Correct.
it in that sense. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Now, a lot of people have tea, black tea in Goa with a
Hmm.
certain type of bread, and that is kankon, right? Which is
Yes.
again the bangle. Kids also love it because they can, put their hands into it and play around basically.
Yeah, the Kankan is definitely very popular with the kids, because you can literally wear it, you as kids, with the small hands, you can literally wear it and start chomping on it. And it goes very well with black tea, khunti chow. So it's that is something.
And it's
quite
supposedly
unique.
good for diabetes.
It is the kankan as well as the poi also is good for diabetes, in the sense because poi is made with less sugar, in as well as more husk, the husk, sorry. So more husk
Okay.
on the outside.
Right. And of course, then there is something called Kalchikodi, which is yesterday's curry, which Goans have for breakfast the next day. And supposedly, this is what I've heard at least, is that the Katri Chopao, which is the scissor-shaped bread, that goes well
Absolutely, yes.
like yesterday's curry.
Kalchikodi is like a very, very Goan all-time favorite, where
Yeah. And the
the
curry
curry
actually
becomes.
tastes better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the curry becomes a little thicker in consistency, and it
Yeah.
gets matured in that sense. So yeah, next
Yeah. And
day's
you can kind of like
breakfast.
soak in the curry very nicely and eat it basically.
Yep.
Yeah. And of course, then there's the very famous Chorizo Pao, which is basically the sausage pao. And that is typically had with a pao or undo, I guess, right? So that covers
Yeah,
pretty much
pao.
most of the
That's
different types.
typically with pao, actually, very, very typically with pao.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Great. So that was now made me hungry for all sorts of
Yes.
bread, which since I'm
Yes,
in
I'm
Bombay
sure it
currently, I
does.
can't have.
It has a it has a way of making talking about bread mix has this
Right.
effect.
Yeah. So now I want to know, you've made, you've made the meal and you've made bread and belonging. And, I loved, even the meal. It's got all of these wonderful people like the late, Floyd Cardos, and it's got a historian. It's got an author. I can't remember the names right now, but, so many wonderful people talking about bread while having this lovely lunch in a,
Yeah, it has
old
Prajal
Goan house.
Sakavdande
Yeah.
as well as Fatima the Silver Glaciers.
Yes.
So
Yeah, that was really nice. So, what's next? I mean, are you writing more? Are you going to be producing, filming, directing more Goan stories? And is there something that we can look forward to?
Yeah, definitely. I would love to, and I'm also looking forward to. But last 2 years have been it's been a blur. We've not been able to go out and kind of even not just filming, but start doing research, because it needs going out, hitting the streets, talking to people, talking to all kinds of people, young and old. And obviously you had to be more careful meeting the elderly. So it's as as we all know,
Yep.
it's
Yes.
been a crazy time. So hopefully from things can move, we can get on, and go out and tell our stories. But really, I don't have anything very concrete that I can say, hey, this is what I'm doing. It's been
Yeah.
quite challenging for us all,
For
mentally
everyone.
also.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
need to be in that space to do it, and physically, of course,
Right.
to be able to
Of
do
course.
it.
Yeah.
So,
Super.
yeah.
So that was our bread, talking about the bread segment. And I hope that our audiences who've been listening, the next time they're in Goa, they should try more than just the regular pav or poi, and try and find maybe somebody who can give you some toddy based bread, or maybe even toddy in the morning, or maybe the different types of pav as we mentioned. Before we do that, let's get on to our Susegad Secret segment. The podcast is called, of course, Susegad Stories, and my book is called Susegad, so therefore there's this segment. And by Susegad, basically, I don't mean the typical laid-back Susegad, but more the finding your balance in life Susegad. So, Sonia, what's your Susegad secret, or where do you find it? How do you find Susegad?
So Susegad for me is actually one might not associate this imagery with Susegad, but it's the roar of the sea, being on the beach and just listening to the waves crash. That's my Susegad space, that's my Susegad time, that's my Susegad mind frame, and I can take it anywhere and everywhere I go, really. So.
Nice. Wow, that does sound quite Susegad, yes. Okay, my other question, which has got nothing to do with Susegad, is a question about love, because love, I think, is transformative. It makes you do things, changes your life pretty much. So, heavy question, but yes, what is the meaning of love to you?
Well, it's about love for me is, being able to reach out and being reachable anytime, any day. Yeah.
Nice, simple. I mean, I've done about 4 or 5 now interviews, and it's always amazing to hear how, especially creative people, expressive people, people who are kind of, I think, a little more sensitive, give this answer. And I like the different kind of answers that I get. Some of them are deep, some of them are simple. Most of them, I think, are simple, which is great. I think that's deep. So yeah. Okay, so my next segment is called Rapid Fire. So it's the Uzo round where I ask you these quick, snappy questions and you have like these quick answers to me. Okay, so yeah, the first question is, what's your favorite pao?
Pui, because it brings back childhood memories of, stuffing whatever you can and whatever you want, as in it and eating it because of the hollow center.
Right. What do you most like having your pao with?
My mom's green coriander chutney. It's a classic.
Wow. Okay. Amazing. My nana used to give it to me with the regular white bread, but I think I need to try it with a pao or a poi.
Yes.
So cool. What's your best fancy bread? Artisanal packaged fancy bread.
I actually like the crusty breads. So the French breads are crusty. So I like them. I like the baguette, and the ones that have that little bite in them. I enjoy that. Yeah.
Okay. What's your favorite bakery in Goa? Do you have any specific one, or?
I can't tell you.
It's a secret.
Yes, it is.
Okay,
no,
wow,
I mean, it's really any place that makes bread with heart, really. And there are a few that still do. So yeah.
Okay, great. All right. So what's your, this question is very interesting. I like it because I think one of the ways to kind of like a place, like a culture, is to, kind of understand the language, learn the language, even if it's one word, 2 words. So what's your favorite Konkani phrase and what does it mean? And, give us an example of it.
So it is one of my favorite ones is, and I've heard quite a few. My maternal grandfather was specialist almost. He had a phrase for every occasion. But the one I like, it's simple, it's fairly common, but it's like "Kam zale ois melo." In the sense, it means like, literal translation is "Kam zale," work's done, and "ois melo," doctor's dead, in that sense. So you finish finish what you want, and you've forgotten the person who's done it for you. So I think it's pretty apt, and it can be used for, it comes in handy, whether you can say it in jest, or you can say it in, you can really say it very seriously.
Yeah. My granny also used to use it. So quite funny. And I think basically it implies that you need to be more grateful and don't forget about someone who has helped you, and to remember them, right?
Right.
That's the implication, basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Any other phrase that you want to tell us about?
Well, this is one which I find quite it's favorite, but at the same time, it has a bit of a dark angle, a dark humor to it.
Wow. Okay.
It's "Ais maka falya tuka." So it actually is something that you see across many cemeteries in Goa. It means like, today it's me, tomorrow it's you, And I think it's quite peculiar that, cemeteries have that. It's like, it's morbid almost. You're passing a cemetery and you see the sign and it says, hey, you're next at some point.
Yeah, I mean,
that kind of thing.
A lot of people might not know this, but Goans have like quite a biting humor. It's quite tart at sometimes, no? Right, so that's why I guess this is one of those cheeky phrases which exists amongst Goan people. That's also one of my favorite sayings. It's lovely. Super. Wow. So Sonia, I generally end with a Konkani phrase that I want people to learn. So I'll say thank you and Mo Gasuni, which basically means let there be love. So Mo Gasuni, Sonia.
Likewise, Clyde. Thank you once again, Mo Gasuni.
Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed this episode of Susegad Stories from Goa. Do subscribe if you're a new listener and join a community of people who love and live the Goan lifestyle. Again, I'm Clyde D'Souza, and for more Goan content, you can follow me on Instagram at Clyde D'Souza Author. This podcast is brought to you by Bound, a company that helps you grow through stories. Follow them at Bound India on all social platforms for updates on this podcast or take a look at their other podcasts. Moga Suni and see you soon.